Sometime during middle school, I think it was during 8th grade, it was there was a time where during Halloween times, during the day at school, we dress up as whatever we wanted to within the, I guess, rules. I guess so. You can't have any weapons or anything like that related to guns or whatever. But there were some exceptions at the time, I guess, at least at my middle school. So I decided to go ahead and dress up as a samurai at the time. I thought it was something pretty cool, unique at the time, and me being Japanese and all that stuff. And it was really funny because I was only one of the very few Japanese kids within the 8th grade or whatever in my class. There were only a few of us at the time, so this costume that I put on was only the more unique, and I stuck out like a sore thumb that day. And for the most part, everyone thought it was really cool. My mom, put together this like pseudo like sort of kimono, and basically I look like this in Ghost of Tsushima, right, within that context. Obviously I didn't have the pants for it, but I kind of like went with the Mitsurugi route with this alternate costume. So I just put on some shorts, and I had this exact sword right here, which is supposed to be Samurai Jack's sword, the katana. It was just so funny. I had this plastic katana, and I remember my principal walking up to me, and he just wanted to check it out. He wanted to, look at this, and he just stared at it for a moment. He's just like, all right. And he just gave it back to me, and I just, like that, you know what I mean? So it was a pretty interesting day. There were some, cool costumes to go around. And I was just part of that too. So, I was the only samurai with the kimono, of course. And that was pretty much it, Point being, I did that because I have a fad for samurais. And naturally with a number of, Japanese kids from my generation, especially around here in the South Bay, we all had some sort of fad or interest within the lore and the whole story and history around samurais. And of course, we all had our fantasies about, being a samurai and stuff. Just the idea of just being a warrior, being so cool with the sword or katana, of course. And it was just a common sort of fantasy that we all had. Until, we all eventually grew up. But that sort of still lives on somehow in all of us, you know what I mean? And we kind of just express that through a different mean. Whether we watch through, Kurosawa films like samurai cinema, or we just watch anything that's related to samurais like Kill Bill and all that in between. And that love for samurais lives in, in many of us still today, and especially now with Ghost of Tsushima. Yes, I had a chance to get my hands on it. I beat it, not too long ago. I want to say almost a week ago as I record this. And whenever I played it throughout my experience, my first playthrough, I had one word going just strong in my head the entire time. And it was just the word, whoa. That was the word that always came to mind whenever I, played Ghost of Tsushima. That was pretty much my experience.
Ghost of Tsushima comes from the game studio Sucker Punch Productions, famous for games such as Infamous and the iconic and yet niche Sly Cooper series. After Infamous First Light, the dev team played with the idea of another open world title. They played around with other themes such as Three Musketeers or Pirates, but they kept edging back to feudal Japan with its samurais. But once the historical event of the Mongol invasion of Tsushima from 1274 clicked in, from there on it snowballed. They did a lot of historical research, bringing in experts, and were inspired from the Japanese cinema, the Akira Kurosawa films such as Seven Samurai and Sanjuro. The first reveal of the game took place during the Paris Games Week on October 30th, 2017, followed by more trailers and presentations on July July 17, 2020, followed by more trailers and presentations. On July 17, 2020, the final product has been released with much success and critical acclaim.
You know what? I'm going to say this with full confidence that I am a part of that equation too when it comes to the positive reception. I very much enjoyed what Ghost of Tsushima had to offer throughout my experience.
Where do I begin with its graphics? I think by far this is the best looking PS4 game ever. And I do mean that. Even better than games such as Final Fantasy VII Remake and Last of Us Part 2. Okay, well, let's reel it back a little bit. Perhaps the most splendid, breathtaking open world game on the PS4 is a more fair assessment. I just couldn't help myself repeatedly saying how good this game looks throughout my experience. Wow, dang. These backgrounds though, they are definitely making use of that color. There were so many instances where I just stopped and just looked around the environment and just nothing but awe took place. There weren't hardly any rough areas unless you really tried to stare at some stuff such as rocks and some other things. But you kind of forget all that because of the vibrant, diverse color palettes are just so vast and elegant, and the lighting really brings it all together. And I mean just look at it. Man, I'm just continued to be impressed every time I play this game, dude. Looks so good. It just looks so good. The particle effects, the animations, the human characters look pretty good too, face-wise and all that. But I think really the main attraction from this game are the environments and its dynamic weather effects. I think these really bring that injection of beauty, elegance, and radiance to this game in the visual apartment. And it's an open world game at that looks this good. You can't deny of how much of a marvel this game is with just the looks alone. Not to mention its photo mode is just simple and effective to really show off the game's beauty and its cool side as you take screenshots during the combat with the blood spraying left and right. It's pretty sick. It's just easy to just tweet these out and provide free marketing for the game with those hashtags and all that stuff. Ain't that something? Of course, despite not looking exactly like the E3 demo from 2018, it's still looking damn fantastic. Even if the fidelity isn't quite on par, as I said, the vast palette of colors is really the other half that sells its look, besides the lighting.
Despite the fact that there's a war going on, they could have definitely stuck with like a more of like that boring like brown and sort of maybe greenish or grayish filter or palette or color scheme throughout the game. But no, man, you not only get that sort of color, you get other color filters or schemes as well. All the colors within whatever you can think of pretty much are in this game, and they are utilized so beautifully. And so it creates this very vivid sort of diverse palette, this diverse, menu that it has to offer when it comes to color within Tsushima. And because they use those colors really well, it just boosts the graphics, the graphical experience. It's just entirely boosted thanks to that.
I should point out that you can play around with the display settings such as the dramatic contrast, especially with Kurosawa mode, which really brings that classic samurai cinema feel to the game. It's really a nice option that they included. Sucker Punch really knew that people love these things in their samurai media, and really glad that Sucker Punch really took these things into consideration. The armor within this game is pretty sick too. They did a really good job emulating that authentic samurai look while throwing in some other pieces that allow you to customize your look, really making Jin look badass in many ways. It is also worth mentioning that the overall art direction and style is just well done to really bring out the authenticity of its theme. The set pieces, the landmarks, character designs, combat animations, the cutscenes, the cinematography within that, they really took their time on these things and it really paid off. It's so well represented as they've made every camera shot and visual nuances count.
It all weaves so well together to absolutely make a great visual masterpiece for an open world samurai game. It's really the best looking open world console game that I've ever had my hands on. I just never seen anything like it from my experience. Of course, as a PS4 Pro owner, I can definitely say that this is the best time to own a PS4 Pro. So if you had yours for however long, now is the time to really sort of kind of justify it now with a game like this. It just really brings out the best reasons to have a PS4 Pro. Maybe a little too late, sure, but nonetheless, Ghost of Tsushima really brings out the power of the PS4 Pro. And boy, I can understand the pain that those regular PS4s have to go through, huffing and puffing, sounding like jet engines, you know what I mean? Like, whenever you sit inside an airplane and it's kind of just on idle or whatever, that's kind of what it sounds like to me. I had my fair share of the regular PS4 experience, and I'm pretty sure it's making all engines were firing, let's just say that much, for the PS4s. But I'm damn sure it was all worth it though, because the game just looks damn good, and it's just visual poetry almost like a haiku, if you will. If that makes sense.
And man, the sounds, the music soundtrack really are absolutely the icing on this delicious cake. From the ambiance, the foley, such as the horse trotting across the beautiful lands of Tsushima, and of course, the sounds of your katana cutting down your foes. It really makes it all the more satisfying whenever you finish off each enemy and attack the next. The music, while subtle in a lot of places, whenever it kicks up, it really makes the scene that much more magnificent. It really brings out the feel of being just absolutely glorifying. It's just a masterpiece. It just knows when to play at the right times.
I also must give my praise for the voice acting. This is one of the few cases where my go-to is pretty much English. I played English for Act 1, Japanese for Act 2, in Act 3 I went back to English just because, I kind of wanted to start with English and end it with English. And I think really here, the authenticity of Ghost of Tsushima, funny enough, is English. I just wanted to give my respects for the English developers, as it has that English flair for the most part when it comes to the audio side of things anyway. So that's why it's to me a little more fitting, as weird as that sounds, having English voices on. Not to mention the lip syncing is only set for English, unfortunately. So the flexibility there is a little lacking. So, but of course, I enjoyed my time with Japanese voices. It's just that the lip syncing and stuff, now it just becomes like, I have this feel whenever I see American cartoons being dubbed into Japanese sort of feel. Same here in this case, because the lips are synced to English. So it kind of just becomes just a little weird. It's a little weird in this case. But because it's all about samurais and all that stuff, it's not as weird. It softens the blow. But all in all, the lip syncing is set to English. So naturally, I most of the way listen to it in English. So the flexibility, unfortunately, isn't there for those who want to jump back and forth, I guess, with Japanese and English. Doesn't happen here. It's just a little weird considering that a lot of the PS4 games that were offered, especially from the Japanese side of things, like Final Fantasy 15 and such, offered multiple lip syncing for all the languages, or most of the languages anyway, especially between English and Japanese. But this is the exception, like I said before. And the Japanese, of course, really sets the emotions as well. But the English really also does a great job, really bring out the emotions as well, despite being in a Japanese setting. But I gotta say though, while I was playing in Japanese, I instantly recognized Jin's Japanese voice, which is the same exact voice for Zoro from One Piece.
Wait, is that Zoro? No way. It is. Oh my god. Oh my god. That's so funny. Dude, that's sick. That's fucking awesome. Oh my god. My mind just got blown. I'm like, wait a minute. That is so... Dude, I'm like... I am heating up right now. Holy shit.
Kazuya Nakai is Jin Sakai, which is really, really funny considering, you know, the voice actor is always tied with like samurais or just badass swordsmen. He always is affiliated with those sort of characters throughout his career, including Zoro, including Mugen, etc., etc. And so having Jin under his belt, it's just all the more kind of funny, but at the same time awesome, because I can just imagine Zoro throughout my Japanese voice portion of the playthrough as I was cutting down my foes. It's just so funny. It's so hilarious. And on top of that fact, there are also other Japanese voice actors from One Piece coming into here as well. You know, for example, Ishikawa shares the same voice as Bucky the Clown. And Lord Shimura, or Uncle Shimura, shares the same voice as Blackbeard. And even Taka has a sharing voice actor from One Piece, which is Usopp of all people, man. It's just all the more hilarious, and it's just awesome too. It just kind of, you know, brings my love for One Piece, my you know, sort of old love for samurais kind of together in a way, which is really weird. Maybe this game was, you know, made for me, I guess, in a way. And it's all developed from Sucker Punch of all things, right? Now we gotta talk about the gameplay. I loved the gameplay overall. I have a very positive experience on this portion as well. Now, first and foremost, the overall structure, funny enough, really feels like a damn Far Cry game. So that could serve as a positive or serve as a weakness for some people. But in my case, I kind of just, it kind of fit, you know what I mean, for a open world samurai game. I think that's just like a really standard format at this point, and Far Cry kind of popularized it, so that's why they're like heavily affiliated with it. But it doesn't really help that the territories and these towers and such are really, you know, reminiscent of the outpost and the radio towers or whatever it is that you can take over in order to help out the people, help out yourself too as well. So you can like have more opportunities to upgrade yourself, your armor, weapons, and whatever. Same thing in Far Cry. That's the same exact sort of purpose that you do in order to progress through the game, gameplay wise. You do the same thing here. You take over Mongol territory, and the more territory you take over, the more opportunities you have to upgrade yourself, or it just opens more doors to progress through the game. You can also discover secret spots. That also is a way to upgrade your character as well. It can range from, you know, the resolve that you can upgrade to. That's like essentially your meter to do special moves and such that you can burn in order to, you know, do stronger attacks. And there are, you know, other things like fox dens for you to help yourself get more charms. And charms are kind of like perks that you can add to yourself for your character for more abilities and effects and such to really make yourself an effective build for your playstyle anyway. So that's one as well for secret spots. And another opportunity when it comes to secret spots is that you can also upgrade yourself from a cosmetic standpoint as well. You can find more cosmetic parts throughout these secret spots, and that also kind of diversifies how your guy is going to look. So overall, as you kind of just explore the area, you're gonna only go up in the world when it comes to gameplay progression.
Speaking of which, the RPG aspects of this game are also familiar to those who play Far Cry games or other Ubisoft games such as Assassin's Creed. It is pretty satisfying to earn as you really see your character kicking more ass out in the battlefield naturally. The combat itself seems to be a blend of games such as Jedi Fallen Order, Assassin's Creed, God of War on the PS4, and so on and so forth. If you're familiar with these games, then you'll feel right at home. As someone like me who only played Assassin's Creed Syndicate for like a little bit, I had to get used to the rhythm of the combat, but once you do, it's just good old samurai fun, especially the more abilities you unlock. I love the mechanic of the standoff. It's just the essential samurai cinema panache that really adds on to the experience. It's just awesome. You get to even upgrade that so you can even kill more people, up to 3 enemies easily, to really make you feel like a badass. Now, the combat in the grand scheme of things is relatively simple. However, you learn to parry and block smart against your enemies rather than just button mash, rush forward and attack. You're getting fucked up early on if you think that's going to work. The game is really trying to aim more towards a weighted combat style, which is appropriate for this kind of samurai game. I do understand if some people may find its combat a little more on the stale side of things, but I call it simple and yet good old-fashioned fun while satisfying as you fight as a samurai. Even with that said, you can unlock more cool abilities and upgrades that let you take out enemies more than ways than just one.
See, you can approach this game in 2 main ways. So one way is to actually fight like an honorable samurai. You can march to or towards the main gate and have the enemy's attention. And once you do, you can set off a standoff, which is really cool, by the way. A standoff is basically you are kind of like in a drawing stance. It's kind of like how cowboys kind of do their draw sort of moment. You wait for the enemy to attack you or approach you, and you pretty much hit the button and cut your enemy down by, kind of unleashing a really quick sword draw attack, or iaido. And it's just a really cool sequence. However, that sets off all the enemies, or at least a big portion of the enemies from the base, and they're all going to come at you at once. So that's going to be really difficult on your end, especially during the early game of things. So if you're not too careful, you're going to have the enemy surrounding you, and essentially you're going to get shish kebabbed to death if you let the enemy surround you completely, and you're going to die pretty early. So there is the other way, however. The other way is that you can, go around like a ninja, essentially, or just like a, warrior in the shadows sort of deal, and, essentially you're a ninja. But anyway, especially when you upgrade your abilities on the assassination side of things, you grant yourself the assassination technique. That's really important because it's such a, really basic technique, and something that you really need throughout the rest of the game, where you sneak up to the enemy and kill them instantly, or pretty quick early on in the game, with a knife or a tanto. Essentially, stab them in the throat or head or whatever, and that's how you kill them instantly. See, that way you don't have to fight all these enemies at once. You can kind of pick them off one by one, and that's the other way as well. That is the other main style that you can approach with. And you're pretty much gonna, probably go back and forth with it. But early on in the game, at least for me anyway, I kind of stuck with the warrior in the shadows sort of way, as I kind of just snuck around and stab with the enemy, the Mongols, man. It was really satisfying to kind of just go around doing that with stealth, man. It's such a powerful tool on your side. And of course, you can upgrade the assassination technique even further. So, instead of killing one enemy at a time, you can actually set off a chain assassination sort of deal. And with that, you can kill up to a maximum of 3 enemies at once, which is really cool. And you can even do that like when you're like, sneaking on the rooftops and you kind of look down on the enemy, and you can set off a triple chain assassination sort of streak. That's when it's really cool.
Yeah.
But yes, that definitely goes against the code of honor, or in this case, the way of the warrior, aka Bushido. Bushido is all about in a standoff, 1v1 or 1v1, and you fight fair and square. No dirty tricks or nothing, right? That's the idea of anyway. That's one of the ideals of Bushido, and so that way other nations or other countries can look at you as like this sort of connotation of order and honor and such, giving you like this cleaner sort of image and such. That's one of the ideas anyway for Bushido, or kind of like a sort of this basic sort of idea for Bushido. But you're going against that. You're going to have to bend the code in order to save your people. Would you do that if you were put into that situation? And that's what this game is all about. That's essentially the story of Ghost of Tsushima. And no worries, it's not actually part of the gameplay anyway. There's no like honor meter or deception meter or whatever it is they want to call it. You're kind of just free, you know what I mean? Like, so you don't have this burden on your shoulders when it comes to the gameplay side of things. So you can play this game whatever you want, however you want, without being burdened, whether you're being too honorable or being too deceptive like a thief or whatever. That's what is the beauty of Tsushima. And that's the story or central sort of the pillar when it comes to the storytelling anyway. That's the main theme here when it comes to Tsushima. The overall story is based off of the Mongol invasion of Tsushima from 1274. Yes, back when Japan was called feudal Japan essentially. The Mongols invade the island of Tsushima of Japan. And Jin Sakai here, our hero, has to do what it takes to save his people, even if it means to defy Bushido, aka the way of the warrior. And it was a great story to tell from this video game here. It tells a tale about wars. Winning wars will cost everything, at least a lot of them. And with that, there's going to be vengeance, there's going to be betrayal, and of course the loss of loved ones. Those things and more were to be had in this story here. As you fight the Mongols your way, your uncle Lord Shimura begins to question your ways, as he is himself an avid samurai and a strong, loyal follower of Bushido. From start to finish, I think the story was really awesome. There's no magic or anything like that, so there's nothing complicating going on. But there is a healthy amount of Japanese mythology here to help supplement Tsushima's backstory and the game's sort of lore overall here. And I always have a fascination with these things when it comes to Japanese mythology being used in other media as well. That's always really cool to see, especially when it's used effectively. It just felt all natural to me. The way it just flowed, it just, the way it progressed, I think they did a really good job with it. It was just deep enough for me to be stimulated, but yet, from my eyes anyway, it was easy to understand. So it was a really good experience to enjoy overall. It was just really enjoyable with the story here. So I think Sucker Punch did a really good job telling this war story. The characters that you come across throughout your playthrough, they all have some sort of burden, or they're all somehow affected by the war, really showing the significance of this war. And so you can't really help yourself but sympathize with these people. And so it just really does a really good job making these characters, really careable. Now, at the same time, though, while being a pretty serious war story, there are some sprinkles of humor. There are characters like Kenji, for example, who provide that. So I think that's a pretty nice little balance there. It just really makes it all the more enjoyable. All in all, I think the story is a great asset that really only adds to Ghost of Tsushima. I will also say that the side stories had a really good variety in my opinion. Now, the process of these side stories are pretty mundane itself, but the stories behind them are what really makes them really interesting, because not always these, good endings are had here. There are also, endings that are pretty tragic. So doing these side stories, it was actually refreshing in a way, because you just never know what was the outcome of things until you finish them. While in other games, for the most part, these side stories are kind of just like really mundane. They feel kind of just stale at times, and they're kind of just like there for the most part, and they kind of grow uninteresting in a lot of cases anyway. But in here, not so much. I think the really big complaint I have overall here, and it's not really that big of a complaint, but maybe more kill animations. You're killing a lot of people, so naturally you're gonna see that same kill animation over and over and over again. I mean, there are some good amount of like animations, sure, but there is gonna be a point where you're gonna see all of them. You're gonna see all of them that many times, and for some people that may grow stale, but it's a minor complaint, so I can kind of overlook that, as the whole gameplay itself was just so satisfying and really fun to play for this game. And as an open world game, there are bound to be some glitches. I've had some minor glitches myself, so I'm pretty good on my part, but there are a good number of videos on glitch of Tsushima, which is something I like to call those. But I had a fair share myself, but they're all kind of minor for the most part. But you will see some like sort of visual sort of mishaps here and there. You'll see some enemies just disappear for some reason. And, in this clip here, I had a enemy dog just T-posing after I killed it.
Oh, did the dog T-pose? Oh, what? What? You're right. What the fuck? Oh, man. Oh, boy.
Ultimately, putting those aside, Ghost of Tsushima is absolutely worth these $60. There's no DLC, there's no extra sort of bullshit that you have to kind of buy or whatever. There's no microtransactions or itty bitty pieces that you have to kind of pick up on your way with your wallet. No, this is what you get pretty much. For $60, you get all of that. For an open world game with stunning graphics, really simple and yet satisfying combat, and it's just really a astounding combination of simplicity and beauty at its best, which really complements the open world experience. And while at that, it has a well-told tale of wars. Not to mention, it's got that awesome, majestic cinema experience from Ghost of Tsushima that really celebrates honors and really kind of, respects samurai media, especially the Kurosawa films, right? As well as Japanese mythos. While going on a main story run, you're gonna have an average of 25 to 30 hours if you really kind of just mingle a little bit with the side story, just so enough your character can grow, right? Upgrade and stuff like that. If you really do that, it's 25 to 30 hours, right? But if you really take your time with the island, explore and all that stuff, go through all the side stories, these secret spots and all that, it's gonna be way over, well over 50 hours. That was my experience anyway. I just love just fighting random Mongols and exploring the islands, especially because it's just so beautiful looking, and you're just gonna get distracted by the gorgeous visage of this game here. It's just so well done. That's all I gotta say here. I had to take some time before I had to give this a verdict here. Now, so with all of that said, I had to take all that time to kind of really come up with a solid verdict here for myself. So out of 10, I really think this deserves honestly a solid 10 out of 10 for me. Sucker Punch did a really good job with this game here. They really took a risk by doing something completely new here for themselves. They're known for Infamous, they're known for Sly Cooper, but a samurai game, right? But they really did it. They really pulled it off. They did it really well. It's just, especially with their with their IPs and stuff like that, it's just so different that it's just like wow and such. They really knocked it out of the park as a samurai game, an open world game at that too. Now, a 10 out of 10 doesn't really mean like it's a perfect game by any means, but I think as a PS4 owner, I think this is something you should go out and try it. I think it's definitely worth the $60 here. And that's all you're gonna need, especially in comparison to other games nowadays. I think it really, absolutely, really tickles the fancy of samurais and open world stuff. And like, look, if you love samurais, if you love Kurosawa stuff, if you love open world games, this is a really strong recommendation for me. I think in terms of being a authentic samurai experience, I think this really does it best here. It really shows off the weight of being a samurai. I think it just really portrays like the whole war around samurais as well, like pretty accurately, at least the feel anyway. Now, of course, the actual stories probably were likely not true, but it felt believable. That's the whole point of these storytellings. And especially for video games anyway, you want these stories to be believable in order to make it just really satisfying, make it really hit it out of the park. And Ghost of Tsushima does a really good job doing that. Ghost of Tsushima is one of those games that really don't need a sequel, but I guess I won't complain if they really do a sequel for this one, but it really doesn't need to happen. So either way, I'm a happy man. So I really do think this game, Ghost of Tsushima, also deserves Game of the Year at the Game Awards along with Final Fantasy VII Remake. If either of those two games win, I'm a content content creator here. Now, if a game like Last of Us Part 2, I don't mean to like, butt in with the Last of Us Part 2 sort of reference here. If that wins Game of the Year for whatever reason. Alright, anyways, that's all I got to say for Ghost of Tsushima. I'm really happy with the results here. Love the experience. Such a great samurai game. If not the greatest one on the PS4 anyway. That's just my 2 cents on it anyway. So if you guys have your own opinions about Ghost of Tsushima, how do you guys like it? Or, if you want to pick it up, any of those comments, leave them down below. We love to read them. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and the bell as well. It's pretty much how you can help out a YouTube channel like this, I guess. But, really appreciate it, guys, as always. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for, like, the major games anyway when it comes to reviewing games. So we'll see where this goes. Maybe I'll review some other games with, like, a quick rapid-fire sort of fashion. Or I can, review other things meanwhile while I wait for games like Cyberpunk to pop up. Maybe anime reviews or something like that. I don't know. We'll see about that. Whatever comes to mind, I guess. That's the nature of me anyway. So, by the way, this game was really awesome. Go out and get it. That's all I gotta say for it to really wrap things up anyway. So, thank you guys so much. This has my review for Ghost of Tsushima. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Sean out.